Welcome to the Whole Church Podcast.
Your favorite church unity podcast.
Probably.
If you want to hear from pastors,
Professors.
and everything in between,
Right, sure.
and, the occasional train talk.
Right, yeah. Have we got the podcast for you?
All right, thanks for listening to the Whole Church Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua. I like peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwiches. They're great. Threw him off. And this is my co-host, Tiberius Juan Blackwell.
Yeah, just TJ. Just TJ Blackwell.
He still hasn't got that name down right. But, yeah. You want to tell him about our Patreon or anything like that?
Please consider supporting us on Patreon if you're listening to this. Goes a long way. We try to help, ourselves mostly, but the community after that.
We just had someone donate for a new mic, so hopefully y'all notice the difference in that quality. Unfortunately, there's always needs when it comes to this kind of ministry as far as softwares and different hardware and stuff to just kind of try and have the best sound quality that we can have to best represent the kingdom and what we do. What are some other ways they can follow us that doesn't require money?
Well, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I was about to say iTunes, but that's no longer a thing.
Dead now.
Yeah, iTunes is dead. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, and that's also where they can comment, which allows more people to see us, and that costs them nothing at all. Right. They just have to go to Apple Podcasts and leave a comment. Yeah. And is that all?
I think that's all for the intro.
Yeah, that's all they need to know to follow us. Why should they follow us?
I
just started following us.
We have the supporter. Well, we have the founders, employees group chat, and our friend Aaron sent a picture of Joshua Knoll has liked the Whole Church Podcast.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought since I created the page, I automatically liked it, and then I was looking and it was like, "Do you want to like this page?" And I was like, "Huh, yes, I would."
Literally the day before yesterday.
Yeah, so I just now liked our podcast. I thought it was okay. I gave it some time to check it out and make sure.
I think it's all right.
Yeah. All right, and that being said, we're going to start with some train talk today. Which, did you want to talk about? Tiberius Juan's dad added a song to the train playlist.
He did, yeah.
That's important.
We've got the train songs playlist, and we've got this theory that everyone has a train song that they like, that they are willing to add to the playlist.
Yeah, without fail so far, every time we mention the trains playlist, the first question is, why? And then the next one is, have you added this song yet? Everyone has a train song.
Yeah, so my dad made us add Railroad Song by Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, you guys are giving fake news right now because you said everybody has a Train song. I couldn't tell you who Train is, and I couldn't tell you one song by I'm assuming it's a band?
Well,
there's also a band named Train, but any songs that happen to have trains in them count.
Yeah. I thought you meant like a band Train.
Yeah.
They have
the Thomas the Train theme songs on there.
You're talking about trains like Choo Choo Train.
Yeah.
In the song.
Yeah. Or
like Johnny Cash, I hear a train a-coming.
Exactly.
There we go. See, everyone has one.
So this is not fake news. This is real news then.
It is.
It's a hypothesis. We're testing it.
Yes.
Yeah. But other train talk, I was really excited. I was reading this month's Christianity Today, and their title article where I was reading, it was all about oil and how the church kind of praised oil when we first found it and how it's kind of become a god in America today with all the different rubbers and stuff made. And the reason it's related to trains, what I really liked, is it just started with train conductor, insert name here, discovered oil in this year. And I was like, trains. Good job, guys. And he mentioned trains once more. I think he was talking about trying to, whenever we are recreating trains, they're looking at green energy for trains now, too. Which is interesting because it's kind of like full cycle.
Yeah. Like those were the first big engines that used a lot of fuel.
And now we're like, let's make clean trains. It's like, cool.
Less fun, though.
It's really interesting article, though. If anyone has the ability to check out the article, I think they should. It pointed out a lot of how even pastors who don't necessarily agree with global warming will still say, hey, pollution's a problem. And what they think the church's response to that should be. It's interesting. Nothing that I feel like I'm smart enough to talk about, but it's something worth thinking about. So if y'all can read it, read it. Is that it for Train Talk?
I think that's it for Train Talk.
All right, that's it for Train Talk. So we are going to introduce our guest. This week is Pastor Kenny Hibbard. Is it now Dr. Kenny Hibbard?
Dr. Pastor Kenny Hibbard?
It is not doctor just yet. I should walk and graduate in December.
Awesome. See, I know you went It's Baylor. I don't remember the
Yep.
name of the seminary.
It's Baylor Truett. So it's Truett Seminary is at Baylor, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So that's just going to be your doctorate in ministry?
Yep.
Cool stuff. How long have you been working on that?
It'll be 3 complete years fall.
Wow. It's not that bad at
So
all.
it's a 3-year degree, so I will have finished in 3 years.
Nice. Good
I heard
way
they
to do
were
that.
Didn't want to stretch it into a 4 or 5 year degree.
Oh, man. I know I actually met you from Charleston Southern University. You were a guest speaking for a church planting class.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Because you guys planted 5 different churches. We're going to talk about that later.
Sure, yeah. We planted
big church planting name.
Team Church in January of 1999, and from our church we've done 5 others.
Wow. Your church is 5 months older than I am.
There you go.
Wow.
I know, right? You're old.
Don't tell me that. Oh, man. So with that, Team Church was the first one. Could you unpack kind of the name of that for us?
Sure. So we didn't actually start off with the name Team Church. When we planted the church, we were Charlotte South Fellowship, and we had a goal of planting a church in the South Charlotte area, and then the East area, and then the North area. So the first 10 years of the church's life, we were Charlotte South Fellowship. But when we bought the property and built the building that you're now sitting in, we were no longer in South Charlotte. And so we knew we needed to change the name. And so our 10-year anniversary, we changed the name. And we tried to think of our name should be connected to our DNA. And so our DNA is we want to be involved in the community. We want to team up with public schools, ministries, really just anybody in the community. We want to take the gospel not only outside the walls here, but also just team up with other people. We're a church planting church. So, when you think of team, you think of people doing stuff together. You think of unity and that kind of stuff. So there you go.
All right.
Wow. Sounds right up our alley. So before my co-host has my head, because he's aggravated. I didn't do our icebreaker question, so I gotta backtrack. Yeah, it's an important icebreaker, especially to. He really likes fast food, so I think this one's especially important to him. You like all food.
I mean, I like food.
Yeah. Well, you really like this question.
Yeah.
Were you the one who came up with this, or was that my fiance?
I don't even remember.
I think it might have
It's
been
been
my fiance.
like a month, 2 months.
Anyway, so this week's icebreaker, we'll answer it first, give you time to think about it.
Okay.
But it's...
So you're asking me the question, or you're asking each other the question?
All of us.
Okay.
We all have
Everyone
to answer.
we all got to answer. Got it.
Yeah. It's who has the best fries? Anywhere, free game. Anywhere you can think of.
It doesn't
Not just
have to
fast
be-
food?
No,
Oh.
it doesn't have to be just fast food.
Okay.
If you think your grandma makes the best fries on earth, then
We need to know about it, and we need
Yes.
to test it to
yeah.
see if it's
Got
true
it.
or not.
I think you can go first because your answer, if I remember, is not as commonplace as my answer.
That's why I wanted you to go first. But
No.
I can do that. Yeah, I had you guys try and guess it. Because everybody guesses Bojangles, which great fries. Or McDonald's or one of those. But I firm believer that Johnny Rockets has the best fries.
That's
I like
it.
those really thin, crisp fries. They're good.
Yeah.
Especially with milkshake. Dipping in a milkshake, it's fantastic.
Yeah, Johnny Rockets, which there's none of around here.
Yeah. But if you go to the beach or something,
Everywhere.
they're there.
See, my favorite fry is, I think, almost the same. I've never had Johnny Rockets, but Freddy's Steak Burgers. I love their fries. They're just shoestring, short. It's almost like potato sticks.
I'm noticing neither of us said waffle fries.
Yeah.
One of those Chick-fil-A lovers are going to come get us.
I dare them.
You can't have the Chick-fil-A waffle fries your best because they give you 4.
Yeah.
And they turn them sideways and make it look like it's full. And so it's just,
does that count as bad mouth in Chick-fil-A? Do we have to repent?
I don't know.
We're actually going to go visit
We're
a
gonna
cathedral
have
after this.
Cancel it.
Yeah. So my best fry, I was trying to go back and forth. I was thinking Red Robin, but they're a little too potatoy.
Yeah.
I'm with Freddy's. There's none here, but in Texas, where
There are some here.
where's the Freddy's here?
Uh,
We're not in our area.
Yeah, there's some up here. Around here.
Where?
I bet there's one 15. I don't spend a huge amount of
Freddy's is
time.
the one over by where my parents are now, right? In Indian Land?
Yeah.
All right.
I think there's one in Indian Land.
They're in Texas, and there's one right across the street from the Baylor campus. They are very good shoestring, very salty.
That's
good.
why you went back to school.
12 miles.
Where's it?
The Indian Land one is 12.5 miles.
There
from
you
here.
go. I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
I will have to venture down there.
You should.
I think we found his God moment of the week.
That's right. That's right.
Aren't they great though?
Yes,
and
they
their
are.
fry sauce is so good.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
You should.
I've had their fries. I thought it was good. I just like Johnny Rockets better.
All right, so we're almost unanimous. Freddy's is
Well, shoestring fries.
shoestring fries are the
That's,
best.
Specifically,
Waffle fries are only
I guess.
limited by how few you can get in a box.
Yeah.
They are a little potato.
Yeah, sometimes they're a little bit too thick. So it can't cook all
Yeah.
the way. Yeah.
All right then.
So back to Team Church.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
back to why
to
we
Team
call it
Church.
team. So you talked about teaming up with different things in
Yes.
the community.
Yep.
Do you team up with other churches in the community?
Sure. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we wanted to do that. So, matter of fact, I just got back. We're on a podcast. You can't see that I have wet clothes on and my shoes and socks are wet.
He made
But,
sure it wasn't on video.
so
I
that's
tried not
right.
to include him
Yeah.
in the snap.
So every year we team up with, we partner with Brookstone, which is a school in Charlotte designed for kids that are less fortunate to kind of get a quality education. And so that school is also sponsored by some churches. The school meets at First Baptist Church of Charlotte. And so we every year do a field day for them. So they get in buses and drive down here where we are and use the fields and that kind of stuff. So good times. But yeah, so when we say team church, teaming up with the community, we team up with churches. Last fall, we were part of, I don't know how many churches did. I think 75 churches did the One Charlotte deal. We team up with churches, of course, for the Love Life Charlotte. And then a lot of times we do missions and those kind of things with churches. We team up with Crisis Pregnancy Center. They use our facility here for different meetings. We do adoption meetings here. So we when we built the building, we told everybody that it would be a functional building for the community.
It is, and it's a very nice building.
Yes.
I appreciate architecture. I think
It's
more than
really
most
pretty.
people, and I love this building.
There you go.
We've actually talked a lot more about architecture on this podcast than I ever thought we would.
Yeah. Like our secondary thing is train talks, but should be architecture talk.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot too. Yeah, that's that's interesting. I know. I was thinking a lot about the word team,
Right.
what it makes me think of.
Sure.
Just because I was like, what are some interesting questions to think of? And I think I'm wearing my Florida State socks.
There you go.
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about college football. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what teams make me
Sure.
think of.
Yeah, me too.
And I realized I saw sort of a pattern there that I think I've noticed in church as a whole.
Okay.
And I just kind of wanted to see if you've seen this or what you thought the purpose behind or the reason behind some of this was. So in college football, Florida State fan.
Yep.
When we're playing Miami, we hate Miami.
Yep.
But if Miami's playing an SEC team or, one of them and it makes us look good, we cheer for them.
Right.
So that made me think, in the church, in the news, if a Baptist or something and they're going up against, evolution or abortion and we're all gung-ho, yeah, go Christians because
Right.
that's our division.
Yep.
But then we're over there and we're like, oh, Baptist, you're one of them. You believe in this.
Sure.
And I'm just like, oh, man. Why is that? Why does there seem to be like this rivalry in-house? But then whenever it's, oh, we'll cheer for you if you're going against
Sure,
the same
yeah.
thing. But, when
I
we're
think-
together, we'll bad talk you.
I hope most churches, I hope we do this. I can only count for myself. So when we see other churches doing really well, we want to celebrate what they're doing. And so I think there is if anybody says there's not a little bit of competition in the churches, I think they would be fooling themselves. And so I think in my own opinion, I think it's fine for churches to look. We'll look and see, and churches will come up with a good idea. We're like, man, that's a great idea. That's a great missions idea, great evangelism idea. Yeah. And so they said, mimic is one of the greatest forms of flattery. Mm-hmm. And so I think you can do that. So I think it's fine to do that. Where it gets negative is when we wish ill will on somebody, or we maybe speak poorly about another church because they're growing a little faster than we are, or they were the first ones to do something. It was really cool or something like that. Yeah. So I think there is some competition there. I think we're all sinners. I think I know that all senior pastors, lead pastors, youth pastors, everybody, we're all sinners. And so left unguarded, we have a competitive, we want what's best for ourselves. And so then we have to encompass that with Christ and help him have him take away that selfishness or that insecurity or whatever it is. So I think if there's competition that gets negative, it's probably based on jealousy or insecurities.
Mm-hmm. So how do we address that? As a team, a lot
Sure.
of us are concerned about it. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing a church unity podcast. Yeah. We wouldn't have anybody listening if no one cared about it. How do we address it?
Well, I think you have to say what is the root cause of the challenge of if there's competition, if there's people wishing ill will. And again, I don't think you should ever wish ill will. I do think that there are churches. If a church in your community, let's just say keep it in your community, in your city. If there's a church that claims the name of Christ, but their core teaching is varied away from and moves away from biblical truth, then I don't think we all have to hold hands here and say peace above everything. I don't think there's peace above everything. If there's a church that's teaching wrong, if there's a church that's doing something wrong, unbiblical, then I think that you can absolutely hold them accountable to that. And I don't think you have to partner with churches that, their main biblical values are just apostasy, right? That doesn't help anybody. That's the bumper stickers that say coexist. Well, the reality is that they all can't coexist because all the major religions disagree, and so there's no agreement in those things when you're talking about who is Christ, salvation, how do you get to heaven, those kind of things. So, I don't think we're called to be apostates, and nor do we have to coddle those who are.
See, I'm trying to think of something to use as an example that, clearly most churches disagree on, but I don't want to pick something and then alienate our audience.
Now, if you talk about disagreements like, some things that aren't salvific in matter, aren't major biblical tragedies, then it's just like, that church uses full band and that church still has a choir. That's ridiculous.
We call those like tier 1 issues.
Yeah. Those
the tier 1 issues are, we believe in God.
Yeah.
God,
If
they're violating a tier 1 issue, then that's an issue. That's a problem.
We adopted the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 system from Dr. Beck from Charleston Southern. I don't know if you ever got to meet him, but he adopted it from, I forgot who he adopted. Basically, this has been handed down 3 times till we've been using it. But so I think it's an important thing, for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Is it salvic? Is it we just can't worship in the same community, but we call each other brother or sister, or is it to the point where we could even be in the same church and disagree?
Right.
And I think it's a good system to have that in place and just kind of know. But let's say something is wrong enough that you absolutely have to address.
Right.
A church is teaching something that it is just flat out wrong.
Right.
Is there a way to address that that's, makes it clear that you do not stand with that?
Sure.
But also doesn't make it appear to the community that we have a church divided?
Yeah. So I think it's important to keep a good front where everybody sees that the church is together, right? And in different denominations, or maybe it could be multiple Baptist churches. So it's funny you should say this. You can go listen to my messages. And so I'm teaching through the book of Jude for 3 weeks. And the book of Jude is actually talking exactly what you're talking about. And so Jude says, he opens up the book, Jude, the younger brother of Jesus, most people believe. We'll go with that one. I think it's probably true. So Jude opens up his book and he says, I wanted to write to you and just talk about all the fun things we're doing, all the unity things, all the barbecues and the chicken that we're eating and all the fun missions we're doing.
Sounds good.
That's what I wanted to do. But I am compelled to tell you to contend for the faith. Because, and he starts talking about that ungodly people, evildoers, have slipped in. They've snuck into the leadership. And Jude's like, if you want to be a coward and not address it, you can do that. But if you want to contend for the faith, you absolutely can do that. So my message this week is the question you just asked. And so Jude actually gives a biblical formula, this is what you do. How you address it. And he says, for those who have been led astray, those who are doubting this and what they believe, and they've just been poorly taught, he said, you offer mercy to them. To those who aren't even Christians, they're just clueless, he said, you want to pluck them out of the fire, which means they're heading for hell, and they don't understand the gospel. They don't understand Christ is. They think they do, but they don't. So you still have a gospel you got to present to them. And then the third thing he said, then there's those who he already named as the ungodly, those who have slipped into the church. They purposefully are teaching wrong, purposely leading people astray. He says, show them mercy as we've all been shown mercy. but be very cautious of how you handle them, how you talk to them, how you deal with them, because even their clothes have a stench that you do not want to be around or have rub off on you. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So that's what Jude says. And so your question, if it's a major biblical deal, and then I think you approach them with mercy. You approach them with grace and truth, but you contend for the faith, and you don't have to back down like a coward.
All right. And
So
you said we can listen to your messages. Where can we do that?
Teamchurch.com.
Yeah, and this will be out Tuesday, so the message that's coming out this week should already be out by the time the podcast comes out.
It usually hits Tuesday afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, so they
Nice.
about the same time they should be able to go.
If your listeners are listening, many people didn't even know there was a book of Jude. And so at the end of the New Testament, right before you get to the book of Revelation, is of Jude. It's one chapter. You can impress your friends and neighbors by telling them you read a whole book of the Bible. It's 25 verses.
Yeah.
And the book of Jude speaks to exactly what you're speaking to, but makes sure that we don't get off on some tangent, that the goal is to give everybody a hug fest.
Yeah. And that's just an interesting fact. One cabin leader I had at the camp that we work at is told us all that he memorized a book of the Bible. No one believed him. He made a bet with one kid. He's like, I bet you $10 I did. It's like, all right, open up to this page in your Bible. And he just started quoting it. Like, the kid
Jude?
was so mad. Yeah,
I think I'm going to do the same thing, but I might go with
Philemon's. No, Titus is bigger. Philemon's probably actually smaller. It's one chapter, about 18
Next to each
It's
verses.
a smart way to do things, guys. Make bets with kids at Bible camp.
That's it.
Oh, I
That's
do it all the time.
Yeah. How are you?
Kids are just so willing to pay their money away.
That's our take this week. Is gambling's good. No, we don't believe.
Don't take money from kids.
But oh man, so what's that look like to show mercy while like? Let's say I'm going to use TJ. Let's say TJ decided he's going to start telling kids, Jesus is good. You can still be saved through Jesus, but there's not actually a God.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I address him so that these kids aren't led astray?
Sure.
But also, don't make it look like I'm like, oh, screw you. Why would you tell kids that?
I don't know. I
So,
think you might have to beat me up.
So you probably do the Matthew 18 thing, right? So you go to him by yourself, and then if he doesn't listen, then you bring in a friend. If he doesn't listen, you bring in leaders of church. So it's Matthew 18. How do you deal with conflict? But also, we forget sometimes that in Galatians, I think it's chapter 2, Peter was absolutely teaching false. He was teaching that the Gentiles had to have circumcision was letting people believe that their salvation, that hey, you're getting saved, but you need to have circumcision, right?
Man, I should have had you believe that.
Yeah, that's right. So the Bible says, it's a great verse. It says that Paul says in Galatians, so I pulled Peter aside and I opposed him to his face. It means I didn't slander him. I didn't gossip with him. I pulled him aside. I got into his face and said, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is not the gospel, is not what we were taught, and that kind of stuff. So we're talking about Peter, right? The rock. Yeah. Peter, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy, Paul had to pull him aside and say, you've been kind of hanging out with the rich people, you've been hanging out with the Jews a little bit, and so you're kind of throwing in some Jewish beliefs, some Judaism beliefs in with the gospel, and it's not really there. So I think it's fine to one-on-one, in a brotherly love or sister love or whatever it is, speak the truth in love. But we've probably adapted and moved into too much of a pansy culture, and
I can see that.
And nobody wants to actually speak the truth because we're afraid of whatever.
Afraid of falling out.
Yeah,
everyone wants to have as many friends as possible.
Sure. You have an audience of what? We have an audience of one. And Jude, and Galatians. I mean, it's all through the New Testament. I mean, they're contending for the faith. They're fighting Gnosticism. We're basically now fighting neo-Gnosticism. So there's a lot of stuff there.
Man. It's actually, in a weird way, kind of encouraging to think. Even the first church had disagreement, but they were able to have unity with that. So that's encouraging for, our mission. We don't have to get everybody to agree. Yeah. We have to find a way to have union and show each other mercy.
Yeah, what the Bible says, as it depends on you, live with peace with everybody, right? So peace is a goal, but not peace at all cost. That's what Jude, Paul, that's everybody. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's okay to have a backbone, a theological backbone.
Now, I can't think of a good segue, but we did have one last question. I like that. I like
let me
using that
make
as a
sure,
segue.
because I know this is going out to thousands upon thousands of listeners.
Yeah, millions.
Millions.
Yeah.
So, and again, we're not talking about do you have contemporary music or a choir. We're not talking about we're talking about major. Jude says the ungodly have slipped in among us, and they are perverting the gospel so that there's a license for immorality. They're denying the Trinity. They're denying Jesus Christ. So we're talking about major theological biblical issues.
Yeah.
We're not. We don't need to be. Nobody needs a personal prophet to go up and say, "Hey, I think you should be doing hymns instead of a band, or you should have a hymn." Now it's the other way, right? Now it's like, man, if you're really cool and you're really Christian, you have a live band and do Hillsong music. But if it's just like
old school.
So we're not talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's
we don't care if you have a
interesting.
drum kit on stage.
People
or not.
seem a lot more willing to confront each other on that kind of stuff, though, than the big stuff. Is what's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're really pansies when it comes to TJ's telling people there's no God. Oh no,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
do I do?
Yeah.
But if he's over there telling someone that the best old hymn
Sure.
is "How Great Thou Art," well, I got to
Yeah.
tell him it's "Amazing Grace" and
Yeah.
let everyone know.
Well, you're wrong. It is how great.
Because most pastors pride themselves. You can tweet this. Most pastors pride themselves in being practitioners, which is, what are some little things I can do to get more people in my church? And so I'm a practitioner. The reason I have a band so I can get more people to come. We have a sports ministry. You can wear shorts here. You can wear a ball cap. You can wear whatever it is.
God.
So most pastors pride themselves in being a practitioner. Unfortunately, today's world, many pastors are not theologians. They actually don't know the Bible and theology very well, so they can't really contend for the faith that they don't really not they don't have a faith, but they're not even sure why they believe what they believe, which is why what the Bible says they're tossed back and forth by every wind of doctrine. We have pastors, I've met them, that the coolest conference is like, oh, such and such church doing a conference, and then they go listen to such and such pastor of the big church at the big conference, and they're completely swayed by that person, and they have no idea.
They have their faith. They just don't know.
Yeah, they have a salvation faith. They don't know their Bible. They're not theologians.
I feel like a lot of them want to, though. How do we equip them? How do we? I don't think we should tell them not to teach anymore. I mean, I think they have the heart. Maybe they were called even.
Absolutely.
How do we equip them better to prevent that?
Well, I think we all have to be lifelong learners. We need to, of course, need to read a Bible, study our Bible. The internet's a beautiful thing. There's all kinds of ways of growing, ways of leading, and ways of reading. But we planted this church 20 years ago. I have three kids biologically. Just adopted a brand new baby, so we have four kids. So when you're leading a church and you're running and gunning, you're just trying to keep. If the Lord sends people, and all of a sudden now you got 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, a bunch of people are coming, and you got teams and that kind of stuff. You wake up one day and you're like, I'm spending a lot of time just managing the organization of the church and trying to preach and manage my staff. And you neglect what Paul says, the study of the word, right? The study of the faith. You got to know what you believe in. So I don't think a lot of them do it by just because they don't want to learn. It just gets your mind, your time gets full. But there's ways. There's books to read. There's things to believe. There's things that the Bible you can read. There's things you can learn to really understand what you believe.
So should we encourage delegation when it gets to that point? Like let someone else take care of it?
If your church is growing, sure, you can't be a one man show,
right?
And again, it's challenging for me. It's challenging for other pastors too. Sunday comes every week, and so to pray and to study and be able to present that. This week we got a field day today that we did as a mission project. Had this was a non-planned death, right? So I had a funeral on Wednesday. He's got a lot of stuff. And so if you're not careful, then as a pastor, what happens is the thing that gets the least amount of attention is your preparation to teach, which is why a lot of pastors get in trouble because they're all plagiarizing. So I can just download a bunch of somebody else's sermons and don't kid yourself. There's a lot of people in big churches. They're just downloading somebody else's sermons and
the easy way,
giving their sermons out.
That's scary. No, mean, even with books or conference, you were saying though, like how do they know what's a legit? You know, like 'cause there's plenty of books out there that just filled with nonsense.
I think you have to, if you don't have a theological background yourself, a theological education yourself to be able to vet, then you have to go to people you trust and then ask them. So I see stuff come with Facebook. The theological cesspool that is Facebook, and people posting stuff, and you're like, you have no idea what that person actually believes. Like you posted a nice little phrase or some little podcast or some little blog or whatever, and you're like,
sorry guys,
you're like, and you see the name, and you're like, so you thought that was cool, and you posted it, but you really don't know what that guy believes, or that girl believes, that church believes. And so there's a challenge there.
Yeah. So discipleship is so big in the Bible, and that's still relevant today with even
relevant
sources.
And the contemporary church. And I use contemporary. I don't mean contemporary like cool contemporary, meaning happening right now.
Yeah,
like
modern church.
Modern today's church
Christianity
is lacking in discipleship, right?
Yeah.
And so when I lack in discipleship, it's hard for me to contend for a faith. But I really don't understand it. And so, again, most of us, a lot of, being a practitioner, so someone says, man, church so-and-so, they've started 3 campuses, and they're growing, they got like that. They must be really doing what Jesus wants them to do. Not all the time, because, again,
Jesus wasn't always popular.
Yeah, it wasn't popular. And showing up on a Sunday, listening to a really cool band with some light shows and fog and, hooping and hollering with the famous speaker, whatever. Probably not a lot of discipleship happening in that moment. And so what is the church offering besides that? Listen, I'm talking about us. I can teach and lead and do some discipleship type of teaching on Sunday morning, but discipleship doesn't happen when I'm speaking to a couple hundred people each service, right?
Yeah.
Discipleship happens life on life, in a group, that kind of stuff. Teaching can happen on a Sunday morning, but discipleship's not happening.
Sunday morning church is becoming more of an experience than it is, church.
Got to have the smoke. You got to have
lights.
the Instagram picture.
The giant word.
And apparently now on Instagram, you got to have the cool sneakers. You've seen the preachers and sneakers.
Oh
Instagram?
yeah, I saw that.
You got to have
an article about that somewhere.
You got to have the $1,500 sneakers.
That was crazy. Actually, this is my favorite podcast. That's not ours. The Holy Post. Phil Vischer's podcast. Yeah, they talked about the sneaker one.
So
and
you
they encouraged all their Patreons to donate so we could get them.
if you go on Instagram, they have the preachers and sneakers. And probably once every 2 weeks they have a little podcast and they're asking people, hey, what do you think about Pastor so and so wearing $4,000 tennis shoes?
Wait, preachers with sneakers? Actually, that's a podcast?
Yeah,
I like it. I'm gonna have to listen to that.
I prefer like a more modest kind of sneaker.
I got to be honest. I don't care how much someone donates on Patreon. I don't think I would get new sneakers.
Yeah.
I mean, if they really wanted,
if that was what they wanted me to do, I might think about it.
I've got a pair of white shoes. I've got a pair of black shoes.
Right.
And I've got a pair of slip-on shoes. That's enough.
Man, I still don't have a good segue. So I'm going to try to segue without a segue again.
Sure.
So just the last thing, y'all have done 5 church plants.
Yep.
Really impressive. And I've heard this question before in church planning class.
Sure, yeah.
But I'd like to hear your answer because you're smarter than me, and I'm sure our listeners would rather a smart opinion.
Yeah.
They why plant new churches in a town that already has churches?
Yeah, so I think statistically, church plants reach people. They're just better for evangelism. And so there's all kinds of practical reasons for that. But in a town like this that has a lot of churches, and a couple of things is that we no longer plant churches in Charlotte. I mean, I think you could. Yeah. Our church plant we're doing right now is in Missoula, Montana.
Wow.
Where there's not a lot of churches, right? But when you plant a new church, I think that the church planting movement has probably slowed down a lot. And one of the things we're doing now is we're teaming up with other churches for church revitalization. And we're seeing that. So a lot of times you're seeing what someone's calling a church plant is a Baptist, Methodist, whatever church, but we'll just stay in Baptist world, a Baptist church. The community transitioned. They got down to a few people who couldn't support the actual facility. Yeah. They're older. And so multiple churches will come together and bring in a new pastor and a core group of people. And so like the local Baptist Association, then that church deeds the building to the association. The association then allows this group of people to have it. So a lot of times you're talking about a church plant. In today's world, especially in a city like Charlotte, it's really the same building. It's just new pastoral leadership, new people in it. Sometimes that
almost like a transplant.
It's called a replant.
Yeah,
it's a replanting of a church. So there I think there's we need to help churches that are struggling, that are already here. Sometimes it's just, and again, it's just nobody likes to hear it, but it is the life cycle. If a church, for whatever reason, failed to continue to reach their community after many years, then the people in that church are probably older, and they're not reaching that community. And so the best thing they can do at a certain point is to say, hey, you know what, this is a great location. The church is not a building, but it is a gathering of the saints on for Sunday, Saturday, whatever it is. So I think so you're seeing a lot of replanting, which is good. You're seeing revitalization. So I would say 5 years ago, your question would be even more apropos. Like there was a lot of church planting. 15 years ago, absolutely, everybody's planting churches. There's still church planting going on, but in most major cities, especially your southern cities, church revitalization is huge. And that is an older church, a struggling church, a plateaued church being re-envisioned, being reinvigorated. Yeah. So there's replanting, which is a whole new group coming in to use a building. And then there's a revitalization, which is same core group, same building, but maybe some new leadership coming in to kind of cast a vision for something to be new. But I think it should always be church planting because it's just it's what Paul did. He was planting churches, and so I think church planting allows us to reach people in a more hyper fast way because the very DNA of a church plant is we are stealth. So we're planting this church. We don't have 1,400 ministries to do. Yeah. We're trying to reach people with the gospel, get them discipled, get them baptized, and get them going. Once you hit a certain size, then all of a sudden there's other things that happen. So there you go.
Interesting. See, I feel like most Christians would agree with that. And I feel like everybody kind of understands that. For someone who's maybe not a Christian, looking at it from the outside, we have a friend who, I won't drop his name, but he's agnostic. Right. And he drives past what he calls Church Road on his way home.
Sure, yeah.
And he says, and I've seen it, I've been to his house before, and there's a Lutheran church right next to a Presbyterian church, and on the other side there's a Baptist church, there's 2 Pentecostal churches, different names, and,
praise God,
and another Baptist church. It's like all like next door to each other. And he's like, why do you do that? Why not just have one big building?
Right. So
what do we say to maybe people who don't understand that kind of mess?
I think you can try to dance around it, but you just go back to the reality of it and say, when people are following Christ, they find different nuances. And so in that nuance of some things that they, as they're reading through the Bible, there's some nuances that are probably not salvific in nature. They're not apostasy in nature. Yeah. And so, ask, sometimes you wouldn't want to try to be like a smart aleck to them, but just say, hey, do you always go to Burger King?
Yes.
So why do we need other burgers?
So there's all kinds of different. We talked about your French fries, right? So there's all kinds of fries. So it's a very rudimentary example, but when people are just when churches were planted and started a long time ago, people just saw different things that they really wanted to. So some churches are really into mission. Some churches are really into evangelism. Some churches are really into discipleship. Well, the reality is all 3 of those are good things, but we focus on certain aspects of it. So back in the day, you had different denominations, different specifics that are doing it, and the reason they're all lined up like that is because typically it still happens today. A community grows, and then you have a stretch of property where there's nobody there, and then you have a highway going through it or a road going through it, And so the reason they're all lined up, because that was probably the cheapest property with the road going through it.
That makes sense to me. So, okay, that is interesting. So, what's ideally, you said you guys team up with other churches around here.
Right.
So ideally, all those churches on Church Road are all teaming up and helping the community.
Yep.
What's something that we can do to see more of that? To see more of churches teaming up the community like you guys have been able to do?
I think you have to find, what are your commonalities? And so for us, we team up mostly with churches that have our same evangelistic thrust, that have our same missions. And so they're not all Baptist churches. They're not all certain denomination. It's these 3 or 4 churches are really into missions. Like they really want to help the people who are challenged in uptown Charlotte. So these 3 or 4 churches can kind of team up to do that. So I think sometimes the agnostic, the person on the outside, is just looking for somewhere to throw a rock, and sometimes it's just pure strategy, right? I mean, so these 2 churches over here really have a passion for sports ministry. Like they really have a passion for sports, really have a passion for young kids in sports. So those 2 churches should get together. At church, the 3 churches over there, they may be a bunch of artists. They like writing poetry and playing music and doing artwork. There's not a right or wrong. One's not more spiritual, but we all like different things. So I'm a sports guy. I don't hang out on the weekends and go to coffee shops. I don't smoke cigars. I don't go paintings. I don't read poetry. But there are people who do, who are just as godly as I am. But I probably don't want to hang out with them because they'd bore me to tears.
Yeah, I don't go to cigar church myself, but I'd be interested to see it.
Yeah, they do have some.
That'd be pretty cool.
Out west.
That's
right there by Freddy's.
What's the church? Was it in Oregon where they all they pass around cigars and drinks before they had their church meeting or something?
I'm sure.
I heard about that in an article once because a lot of people were upset when they heard about it. On the East Coast, that's unheard of.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, you can't eat in the sanctuary. You
Yeah.
can't drink in the. You can't smoke in the sanctuary for sure.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah, interesting stuff.
So I would encourage your listeners to do the research and don't always just suppose that because you see 10 different churches that all don't hang out together, that they all hate each other. Sometimes it's just it's a fact of life.
Yeah. We
hang out with the people that we have the same common and things, the same thing in common. There's values, but even if you take the biblical aspect out of it, I mean, they're just there's churches in Texas. They call them cowboy churches, right? And they're in small towns in Texas, and they all wear their belt buckles. They're all true cowboys, not the wannabe cowboys that live in Union County here, but they're like the real cowboys, like real cowboys. And that's their lifestyle. And so
interesting.
Like we have biker church down here.
Sure,
there are a few.
That's interesting
In South Carolina.
Yeah, I haven't been to that. Obviously, I probably wouldn't fit in.
No, you wouldn't.
You
don't want any weather
Where
vest.
is Podcast Church at? Is that anywhere near here?
Right here. We are Podcast Church.
We're it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, but look for similarities in ministries so that we can all team up. That's a good takeaway. As more churches, more people do that, would you expect anything to change? Like if we saw that happening, what would be the visual difference that we saw of churches doing that?
Of coming together?
Yeah, just finding similar
I
things
think
to
if you Google it, it was Charlotte 1 last year?
Yeah.
So there was like 75 churches. We all preached the same sermon, same sermon for a month. We all got involved in the same mission aspect. We all did some very similar things. So there was a movement here called Charlotte 1, and so we got involved in that. So I think that's what it would look like.
It's very unified.
Unified, yeah. But again,
Nice.
But there is when your church is a certain size, you're kind of got your head down, you're grinding, you're doing what God's called you to do, and you've got funerals and student ministries and kids ministries and churches and ministries, and you're baptizing people and things are growing, and you're kind of, there's only so many hours in the week, right? And so you have to then pick and choose. Hey, these 3 or 4 churches here, they kind of line up with us in this mission aspect. They enjoy doing inner city schools. They enjoy doing whatever. So you can't. I just think it's illogical to think that every church is going to do everything together. Yeah, families don't do that, right?
No. Not mine.
I mean, think about it. Your families don't do that. All your cousins and aunts and uncles and cousins, like that, does everybody get together and play kickball? No.
We used to.
Yeah.
And then we realized we don't like each other.
There you go.
Oh, man. All right, then. Yeah. So the actual last thing we do is we like to just share a God moment of the week, just something God's done this week, whether it be a challenge, uplifting moment, anything like that.
Right.
He's been at camp for a week, so I know he's got a good one. So
I just came back from good old Pentecostal camp not too long ago.
You guys have snakes and fires?
Of course. Not anymore. But
there's only one church that still does that, supposedly. It's
we did have a snake last year.
Did you?
Yeah, not for worship purposes, but David definitely went over and picked it up and like, hey guys, a snake.
Yeah.
And then took it to the woods.
Yeah.
Well, it was under the swings, and he was just like, oh, I'll take care of this.
Yeah.
Just picked it up.
Beautiful.
And walked it to the woods.
David's great.
Yeah. But my God moment of the week is from, it's caused by the host of our sister podcast. They were the speakers at the camp, Dolores and Marie.
And that's Pastors of a Dying Church.
Yeah, the Pastors of a Dying Church podcast host. Great podcast. But they were talking about Jesus moments, which, is a God moment, to all the campers. And Dolores talked about how she looks for God moments. Like she actively looks to see events in which God presents himself. And it made me realize that I don't do that. Like the reason I don't have that many God moments is because I'm never looking for it. So I think from here on out, I will have significantly more.
Have you ever thought about buying like a different, I'm going to buy a truck. And all of a sudden you see trucks everywhere?
Yeah.
It's because you're looking for it.
The number 42.
That's like I had a Blazer.
Yeah.
Once I had the Blazer.
Everybody got a Blazer.
Yeah. Look, everyone on earth drives a two-door Blazer now. Surprise.
That's like a 42. Anyone, like, whenever you watch Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and you get the 42 joke, which I won't spoil it for anybody. If you watch Hitchhiker's Guide or just look it up on YouTube, you'll find the joke. But as soon as you know 42 is a joke, you find it actually everywhere. Yeah. Will Smith in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air had a coat that just had 42 all over it, just randomly, for no reason. So, yeah, that's the same thing.
Is that your God moment of the week
my
from
God moment was I just
15
really
years ago?
42. No. Oh, man. I'm having a hard time coming up with a God moment this week.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, how the turntables.
I got a God moment for you.
Okay. Excellent.
So out of the blue, guy dies, do his funeral, and, funerals are kind of all the same. And but when you sit through a funeral of a person who's a little bit younger, and so the God moment is that everybody these days, when you do a funeral, most of the time they put a little slideshow together, right? Here's a slideshow, so everybody does that. And so you're watching the slideshow, so the God moment is always being cognizant and aware that we're all creating our own end-of-life slideshow. Mm-hmm. What pictures are people going to show of you? Who's going to put that slideshow together? Who's going to be in that slideshow? Because every wedding I've done the last 3 years is a slideshow set to sad music, right?
Yep.
And so the God moment is this. We're all creating a slideshow. What's it going to be?
Yeah. And you get like a halfway point at your wedding. At your wedding, you get a slideshow now.
Yeah.
The day before or whatever. I just went this past weekend.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Oh, yeah, you will.
Oh, yeah. I'll get that soon. But I did think of a God moment. It was just technically over a week ago. Because we missed a week on the podcast.
Yeah.
So it just seems
you got
really
norovirus.
Ago. Yeah.
Good job.
Which is what my God moment was about. So I got very badly sick. And my fiance brought all kinds of stuff to me for me to take care of myself. She was like, all right, here's a whole thing of water. Here's a whole pack of Powerade Zero. Here's Pedialyte. Here's 2 full bottles of Pepto-Bismol. And there was like all kinds of soup. Just a whole ton of stuff. Just brought it to me. And I was like, you got this. She didn't want to be anywhere near me because I was sitting.
No, she didn't.
She just made sure I had my stuff and she left. And it was weird because I was thinking about it and I was thinking about, she got sick over a year before that. And I remember it being like 3 a.m. and her dad being up with her and her calling me. And I just got off work because we were stocking overnight and counting inventory at Harris Teeter. And I drove to her and I just was there. I didn't bring anything. And I was thinking about that.
My present is my present.
Sick.
You're welcome.
Yeah. But I was thinking about it after I was sick, and I realized God's that to us. Everybody needs different things when they're in bad situations. What you need and what I need might be completely different. I don't want someone there babying me. I want to be left alone when I'm sick because I feel awful.
Yeah, that's not the vibe that I got.
Yeah, well, she's sick. She wants people constantly there because she just wants to feel cared for. And I just feel like everyone has that. Like, we have different needs, and God knows how to meet them all.
You sat on the floor while I played Dead Space until like 3 a.m.
Yeah, I wanted something on the TV, but I didn't want to be doing it. Yeah. But I didn't want you to be touching me. That would have been weird.
Don't worry, I wasn't gonna.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, so that'll be my God moment.
Don't worry about it.
Do you wanna do the outro?
Yeah, alright. So thanks for listening. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Please support us on Patreon for $10.
Yeah,
Be better than everywhere else.
I put together a packet. Yeah. So instead of paying for Netflix, you can now follow us for $3 a month. Follow the Holy Post for $5 a month. Do $4 a month to Christianity Today. I'm pretty sure you're saving $1. So there you go. You don't need Netflix anymore. You're all welcome.
Yeah, as long as you just don't
want to watch
Netflix
TV
for the movies.
As long as you don't want to watch TV
and for some
movies.
reason have been using Netflix for Christian content.
Yeah, if that was the case, this is a much better deal. Oh, man. So other than Patreon, make sure you email us if they all have any God moments of the week so we can read it out. Yeah. That's thewholechurch@gmail.com. Not the Whole Church Podcast, just thewholechurch@gmail.com. And where can they leave a comment for us?
Well, you can leave a comment right now on Apple Podcasts. Getting used to not saying iTunes.
Yeah, it's still
and Google Play, you're supposed to be able to leave a comment.
We can't figure out how, but supposedly you can.
Right.
But yeah, that wraps it up. Who are some future guests?
Future guests we
I've
have.
actually been saying Kenny Hibbard for a while.
Yeah.
So
Kenny Hibbard.
Next. We're meeting with a Mormon family tomorrow to talk about whether or not they think their church could have unity with any Protestant churches or anything like that, a different doctrine.
Yeah.
So that could be really interesting.
Got Dr. Nathan Finn from
NGU. Father Patrick is a local priest. I don't know what you say. The Catholic church around here. Obviously, I've not gone to Catholic church enough to know what I'm supposed to say for that. So hopefully we find that out soon.
We've got Judy Knoll in the future.
Oh yeah,
that'll be in
cousin.
August.
Yeah, she's Methodist minister, so that could be
Wow.
interesting.
Woman
Methodist.
Donald Whitney, hopefully.
Susie Cummins.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to talk about some of her personal life and
That's our
how
boss.
it's related to. Yeah, she's our boss at Chipotle, and she's a fascinating story when it comes to Christianity and homosexuality. So that's excited to hear about that.
Becky Walker again.
Yeah, we're gonna have her
and
time.
Lots of camp people in these
Donald Whitney.
this next
Yeah,
week.
we're going to be releasing a bonus episode since we missed one. We're just going to ask a bunch of people what camp means to them. So be looking for some bonus content as well.
And Francis Chan. I dropped my pen.
This season.
Yeah, Francis
He
Chan at the end of the
doesn't
season.
know about it yet. All right. Thanks for listening.